Hey everybody! So this week we were in the third and final week of our Advent series, and we discussed the past or the original coming or advent of Christ and what we call the incarnation in Bethlehem. We had three big texts. We had a lot of texts this week. Isaiah 7, 1 through 16, John 1, 1 through 14, and then Exodus 25, 1 through 8. The three big ideas were first off that God often disappoints us because God isn't really a fixer. When we want God to be a fixer, and that's just not the way God really operates in the world. Second, we discussed that in the incarnation, God chooses to be with us in a way that was previously unimaginable. For any religion in the history of the world, this idea that a God would take on flesh and dwell with people was this unimaginable idea. And then the third idea, and it's related to the second, is that God, because of the incarnation, knows what it's like to be a human, which is kind of a mind-blowing fact. So our questions. So first off, read Exodus 25, 1 through 8. And then the question I want you to discuss is, why is it significant that God asked the people, that God asked the Israelites to build him a sanctuary? Why would that be included in the book of Exodus, these instructions? In fact, the last third of the book of Exodus is instructions, these really intricate instructions for building this sanctuary or tabernacle or traveling tent. And so why is it significant that God asked the people to build him that? Second, have you read John 1, 1 through 14. And then the question is, hearing echoes of Exodus 25 in this John 1 text, what do you think that the writer wants us to understand about Jesus? Third question, a little bit more practical now. When has God disappointed you? I shared a few times on Sunday that God has disappointed me, and I think we've all got a pretty long list. And so give a few specific examples of ways, of times that God has disappointed you. Next, I have a quote I'd love for you to discuss. I mentioned this in the sermon. I said, God is less like a fixer who swoops in and out with instant and easy fixes, and God is more like a friend who walks with us and beside us. God will deliver us, but God delivers us through things, not around things. So discuss that quote. Next question, what's something in your life right now that you get this feeling that God is delivering you through it instead of around it? Next question, how can our being disappointed with God, which is an inevitable part of being a human, how can our disappointment with God actually be a good thing if we'll let it? Next, got another text for you to read, Hebrews 2, verses 14 through 17. All right, now read it and then ask, how does it encourage you to know that God knows what it's like to be a human? Right? How is it encouraging? Being a human is hard work. It's the hardest thing we'll ever do. And so how is it encouraging to know that God knows what it's like to be a human? Last question. Over the Christmas season, who is somebody that God is calling you to walk with instead of necessarily trying to fix? So just as God chose, when God wanted to save us, to not just pluck us up out of all of our problems instantly. Instead, God said, no, I'm going to go all in on their problems and walk with them through it. Now, who is somebody whom you could do the same thing for? Somebody that God is calling you to walk with instead of necessarily trying to fix. So happy discussing. I hope you have a great Christmas season, and I hope you guys and girls have enjoyed the Advent series. Peace.